are here in what has obviously been a really different, difficult 2020 for high school athletics, let alone volleyball. I'm Chet Licata. The good news is I'm off camera, so you don't get to see me. The gentleman on the left, that is Mr. Butch Hart. He is the, as I call him, the guru of Texas high school sports. Been doing it since 1983. The guy on the right is the guy. Where do we pick him up? We picked him up outside, right? That is Jason Raymer. And what's your title this year? You seem to have like rotating titles, you know?
Yes, this year, past president of Texas Girls Coaches Association for the second year. It's been a 5-year term on the executive committee.
Turn the microphone on. Put it up.
Pull it up. I got to unmute myself just like a Zoom over here.
Right?
Yeah,
Okay.
This year, still past president of Texas Girls Coaches Association. Head volleyball coach, Fredericksburg High School.
Well, it's great to have you here. And I think, what is this now, Lee Grisham, who's off camera because he was late, so we're going to make him serve a 20-minute penalty. Is this like 5 years now we've been doing this? The championship Saturday, the whole TGCA at state thing? We'll talk to Lee Grisham because, of course, his former team is going for a state title without him. And Butch, you'll appreciate it. Both you guys appreciate this. I called Lee after they beat Needville, which, by the way, I predicted and Butch didn't. That's the first time in 5 years I've got one right that he didn't. And I call Lee and I say, are you like coaching at night and we're not aware of this or what? I mean, the culture at Wimberley is it's like so many of the teams that'll be here this weekend, be here in a couple weeks. It's just fun. Volleyball is fun. Go ahead.
Well, Chuck, I will tell you, Wimberley is a special warm spot for me. Going back to when Lee was there, because I used to do all of the beat writing, and the papers used to pay a lot more attention. And Wimberley, of all of the great teams, now they had to this point, the two greatest teams in Texas high school volleyball history, in my opinion, and it's only based on about 4 decades, are Lee's younger daughter, Jessie Grisham's senior year with McCrocklin and Rainburg, and they beat the 5A. In those days, 5A was the largest. They beat those two teams in warm-ups, San Antonio and Austin Westlake. And Kirby Irish, the coach at San Antonio, indicated that they were the best team they'd ever seen. That team plus the Amy Neal Lake Travis 50-0 team. So those are the two best high school teams, and I've seen them all from Windthorst to my good friend. I saw Susan Brewer from Belleville downstairs, and Susan and Lee used to be great rivals. Belleville and Wimberley used to have great matchups, and in fact, one of Lee's better teams that probably would have won state lost to Belleville in a regional. Belleville went ahead and won state, and another time they lost, and Caldwell won state in a team. So Lee not only has state championship rings for all of his hand and then one for the additional hand, he was close on 3 others. So yeah, this is a special day for me. And I'm going to fess up front. Needville was 99-3 in sets played on a 33-0 season, and Wimberley beat them. And I can only wish Stephanie Bartels and the Wimberley team the best, because that Needville team that they beat was a real good team. They'll have their hands full with Decatur. Decatur is a 28-1 team whose only loss is to 5A and unbeaten Lovejoy. So Decatur's no slouch. But when you get to this point, there's no slouches at this level.
And Jason, not to harp on sounding like we're kissing up the league, because God knows we don't when we're off camera.
No.
But he is such a symbol of respect. I mean, I give him a hard time, when I'm talking to him or when he's standing here like he is. But to have a guy that is not just volleyball, but just to have a guy that garners that much respect from everybody across the state does the TGCA very well.
Oh, absolutely. And go back to kind of what Butch was saying, a small school, 4A and below now, that's what Wimberley did during that magical run they had, competing with the big boys. And it's a small school people really like, and what he did in Wimberley, a small school people no doubt respect what he did during that run. Beat us regularly, but everybody, those banners, the Austin news people have been doing. The TV guys were in the gym this week, and the kids talked about the banners and things that are in the gym, and it's no doubt a motivating factor for those kids. And it's been 10 years, and Lee and I have been talking this week about how there's really no connection. There's no sister or anything that has been there other than those pictures and those banners that are on the wall. And,
I think
Stephanie's
right.
talked about that. But you can go down the list of the Goliads, the teams that are here, the Goliads, the Iolas. It culture and tradition wins out more times than not.
I find that really, and by the way, when I mentioned great Wimberley teams, the most interesting loss that Lee had of all of the tips at state was they were a middle-sized 4A team, Wimberley, and the team that they played, remember how UIL realignments work, the team that they played was at the large 5A level, Lucas Lovejoy, but because of the 2-year realignment, at the time that they played Wimberley, they were almost 4 times the size of Wimberley in a volleyball intense area. and they did, but you get those every once in a while. I do recall many years ago, Louisville Hebron, when they won the 5A state championship, were bigger than all 4 schools in the 6A tournament.
Right.
Those things happen in heavy growth areas in Lovejoy. No disrespect to Lovejoy, because wonderful program, and I fully anticipate to see them back in December here, because they're really good. Ryan Mitchell's a fine coach. Oh. But to Jason's point, I've been involved in Texas high school girls sports for 4 decades, and I have there's a special feeling for me when Nazareth rolls out in 1A basketball with 80 girls and they're back. Or the East Bernard or Schulenburg having wonderful years this year, and I see those kinds of things. I do have a warm spot for right in the middle of 4A in North Texas is the group that includes Decatur, Argyle, Crum, Bridgeport. That district, now it's 9 this year. Every year, that district in every girls' sport is going to send somebody to the regional tournament, maybe 2 somebodies, and they're going to be fun. And I think that's what makes Texas high school sports different than every other state in the United States. We have, including TAPS, private schools, and home schools, we've got nearly closer to 2,000 schools playing girls' sports. And that matters. It's not all about the Lake Travises, no disrespect there, or the Kleins, or the Cadies, or those schools. It's about the Fredericksburgs, the Kerrvilles, the Wimberleys, the Netches, the Blums, the Buckholts. That's why Texas Girls Coach Association is so important. That's why I appreciate everything that goes on in girls sports, but I'm an absolute advocate of girls sports because they're not playing for the NBA or the WNBA. They're playing for their school. For the vast majority of them, their senior year is the last they'll play. It's why COVID has been so bad this year. I just got a note today, all the schools that are shut down until December because they're not going to play. They're hoping for a break. Volleyball did an amazing job of covering back. We're coming into some tough times in girls basketball.
And Jason, to that point, as somebody who's coached and been through this, I was telling coaches, back in August, September, I feel for you because I know what you go through just when everything's regular. You've got so much responsibility on your plate. Now you have COVID and all the safety regulations and the ever-changing landscape of what COVID has brought. What's that been like?
I've been telling people, the only normalcy in our world was the 3 hours we were at practice. When the kids got in the gym and we practiced and we cleaned everything, you take temperatures, you do all the COVID stuff. And then when we finally start practicing, it feels normal. The games feel normal. It's at 10 o'clock when the first one starts up there and we play for a gold medal, it's going to feel normal. Now, the crowd's going to be small and all that stuff, but the sports, the normalcy, and that's what we've been talking about at school is the kids need the normalcy. They need to compete in athletics and represent their community. But Chuck, when your phone has been dinging over there getting text messages, whenever your phone lights up all year long, you pause
Yeah.
And your heart skips a beat, like, oh God, this could be the text message. This could be the call from the principal to the athletic director saying, hey, we have this, you got to stop. And, good friends of mine are getting ready to go to state cross country meet, and they've been in this bubble keeping these kids safe, and the volleyball teams are the same way. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring.
We ran into this week as I was doing volleyball setups. Round Rock got dinged next to the last day.
Mm-hmm.
And Vista Ridge got, hurry up, get your stuff out there.
Yeah, it's disheartening because you've worked all year long. I mean, we had 2 starters quarantined. We were really good up until district starts at 4:00 on a 5:00 freshman JV first district game. Get called to the principal's office, and we had a positive case, and this kid is quarantined. I mean, that's the tough part, and we are always in control as the head coach of a volleyball program or cross country or basketball. You're in control.
Right.
And it's teenage kids.
Right.
It's teenage girls. You're in control about as much as you can be. But we pride ourselves on knowing the situation and what's coming. And that's been the most difficult part is having to be flexible and just having to flip on a dime of this is what we got to do. And, when you lose a starter, or it's so disheartening. I mean, to win a district champ or wherever Round Rock High finished, and then you work, and then here comes the reward of playoffs, and then it gets pulled out. It's disheartening. It's tough, but it's 2020.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of flip, can you and Lee flip for a minute? We'll get Lee Grisham, the gentleman that we were roasting. That's what we got to do. When we do this Friday, December 11th, we got to have a Lee Grisham roast. That'd be kind of fun, right? And obviously, welcome, Coach. It's great to have you. Kind of off what Jason said, you and Sam Tipton obviously are the figureheads of TGCA, and there's so many people that work with you that have done a lot, and I'll let you get that in a minute. Give us an idea of what you all faced from March on when this whole COVID thing broke out and coaches calling and what has been the process for you and Sam and everybody at TGCA?
Well, what we had to deal with was
just a little closer. No, you're good.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, we had to deal with is the ever-changing rules of the UIL, and UIL was put in a real tough situation with different regulations and rules that they were getting from the governor's office, and they've done a great job. And all we had to do really is get an interpretation from them and pass it on to the coaches. So it really hasn't been that much for us, but the UIL is the one who's been
come on, man,
under the gun.
Butch, please.
Yeah.
Come on. Speak up for me. You know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, but I will have to say that where the coaches, where TGCA has really done it is a real quick story without going into a whole lot of detail, but there was a circumstance in the North Austin area in which a football program had to forfeit a couple of games, and in volleyball, they didn't have to forfeit. They just didn't come into play. So several of the parents reached out to me and said, well, you can see how the district and how TGCA and how everybody was biased against volleyball. And so I had to take the time and say, you do understand that the coaches themselves made those rules. You're across 3 different school districts. There was no district rule. The coaches got together, and the football coach's decision was, if you can't play and you can't make it up and it's your fault, it's a forfeit. In volleyball, they've said, if you can't make it up and it's not your fault, we just don't count the games. I said, the coaches in the district, who are all members of TGCA in this particular, the coaches were given it. That's what TGCA and the UIL have allowed them to do. It's given them that level of autonomy. So they made the decision. I'm sorry it didn't work out for your school, but your coach had one of the 8 votes in there. And the parents didn't know that. They somehow thought that it had been passed down from TGCA or from UIL. This has been a crazy year. This has been a crazy year. And I think, quite frankly, Sam and Lee and Jason, they have been on the razor's edge. And Charles Brydup and Jamie Harrison, I can't even imagine that having to deal with the governor's office. But trying to let people make their own decisions and trying to using science to make the best calls you can, that's all you can do. We haven't figured it out at the national level. How in the hell are you going to figure it out at the local level to everybody's satisfaction?
Lee?
Well, one of the things that the UIL, remember UIL doesn't really come up with the rules. You know, the superintendents and you know, they are the ones who are the rule making bodies, and so you know, they give the UIL, the superintendents give the UIL some leeway, and then obviously the governor's office gives them the parameters, and you know, and then you got the DECs, the district executive committees, which actually you know have an input in a lot of conversations about forfeits and replaying the games. So you know, local control. That's the big key word.
But the interesting thing to talk to, and I'd like to get Lee's kind of thoughts. There's really, for today, for Super Saturday, Class 1A to 4A, the reality is that, in my opinion, there's no surprises of the teams that are here. That is not disrespectful to somebody else, but the 8 teams that are here, this isn't the Final 4. This is the Final 2.
That's right.
These are all these are gold and silver medalists.
Yeah.
There's no flukes here. There is nobody say, "Gosh, I'm surprised they got here." There's nobody. You know, you go back to Netchus and Blum and Crawford and Goliad and Bushland. As you go through this, Wimberley and Decatur, there's no surprises. I didn't mention Bushland. I pulled into the parking lot. I thought, man, that is a nice RV bus.
Right?
And then I realized it's the Bushland Falcons.
Right.
And Jason Culpepper has just done a wonderful job with that. No surprises. Everybody that's here has earned their way here. No disrespect to anybody else, but we'll see 4 great matches today. I was just going to ask Lee, what do you think on just not so much prediction, but the quality of play here is no surprises, these coaches.
No, I go off with what Jason said earlier, the tradition and just the community support. I mean, that means a lot for all of these teams, and you know, you gotta understand that means a lot on the volleyball court, or in any sport. You know, you get a little tradition. You know, everyone. It seems like every successful program has a history of being successful. I mean, as funny as that sounds, but yeah, there's no surprises, and they all deserve to be here, and. You know, I'm looking forward to it. I think there's going to be some really good matches, and it's just going to be a different animal. I mean, we're going to see a limited crowd. We're going to see, you know, everyone leaves after each session. And
yeah, right. Yeah. Exactly. Speaking of which, we got so much on the COVID thing, we forgot to say what the matches are. In 1A, 2-time defending champ Natchez takes on Blum at 10 a.m. Then at 1 p.m., it's Iola and Crawford. Gee, Crawford in the state championship? Go figure that one. 4 o'clock, it's Bushland and Goliad. And then the 7 p.m., Decatur and Wimberley for the 4A state.
I want to mention an interesting thing about Jamie McDougall at Iola. Iola's in the same district as Jewett-Leon. And they split again this year. And Beckville, who's really good, is in that same region. And so you've got this transition where
you guys got to tag each other.
Beckville beat Leon. Iola beat Beckville. And so now Iola, by beating Beckville, they get the chance to play Crawford, Jeff Coker and Crawford. That's ignominious. But in 2A, that's incredible. I want to mention, though, when the state tournament was played at San Marcos at Strahan Arena, that was Billy Bob Evans' last coaching thing. They showed up. And I mentioned to Chuck, it almost makes me choke up. It's how much I love this sport. His team won, and Billy Bob was in coveralls, which he always wore. One of the fathers of volleyball in this state, he was holding the trophy, and his girls were around him. Outside his girls were the mothers, of which 5 of the mothers of daughters played for Billy Bob, and outside them they had 3 grandmothers who had gotten state championship with the Cougars at Leon, and Billy Bob was there, and they had Going Out in a Blaze of Glory was the song they were playing. He had 7 state championships. 7 is not the record, but it was over 40 plus years. And I look at that, and by the way, when I'm talking about that, I want to remind everybody, my good friend Barbara Como at Port Neches Grove retired. Right now, she's the all-time winningest volleyball coach, ahead of Billy Bob and slightly ahead of Susan Brewer at Belleville, who, if she sticks around, may get it. Her first trip to the state championship, they didn't win because the match expired on time limit. That's how long we've been playing volleyball. Her first year, they didn't win state back in the 70s because it was a time limit. So
now
by pay.
Now, to bring up, speaking of rivalries, the fun rivalry that I got, and this is when I got to know Jason, back when they played Liberty Hill.
Oh, gosh. He's just not going to let this.
No.
He's got to get Gretchen Peterson's name
Got to
in every
get
conversation.
Gretchen in there, absolutely.
Everyone,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
This guy right here on the right of your screen always found a way to kill momentum. It would be, wipe up a spot on the floor, have a discussion with the referee, send the captain over to talk to the up official. You were Captain Delay is what you were. And those are great matches.
It's a momentum game. This game is all about momentum, and it can swing. This game is unlike the ebb and flow of basketball. It's a momentum game, and you can turn it, you can slow it down a little bit, you can speed up a little bit. Talking to Coach Culpepper at Bushland, I think it was Gunter or one of their last playoff games. I think it was Gunter. They lost the fourth set, and he was telling me that just the game came to a screeching halt. And that's part of the gamesmanship of our game, and it's
mop up the wet spots.
Yeah,
gotta have the lineup checks.
Yeah, but we were just talking to Stephanie downstairs, and talking about today and the differences of 2020. It's they're not even going to get to watch a game in the building,
right?
So those teams that have been the kids that have been here before, the Goliads, and it goes back to the tradition and the culture that these programs that are here today. That's kind of the theme, thinking about what we could talk about today. That's kind of the theme of the Saturday for me is these tradition-rich programs that are here. You look in the program, and the Wimberley's been here 10, 11 years, and the Decaturs, and recently the Goliads and the Iolas, who have kind of taken over the Leon tradition, and Goliad has kind of taken over the 3A Region 4 tradition of Poth, and they're building traditions.
Speaking of which, we're going to go to 1A real quick. Obviously, Natchez and Blum. Natchez comes in. They've won the two previous. We really expected them back. When we talked to them, they didn't lose anybody coming into this year.
And Blum has been in this building.
Yes.
Blum has been at the state track meet, and
Blum's got a real good group in there. Yeah, and to your point, they're. I can always tell this because I do the polls and Lee and Jason both we go through this stuff. Girls basketball is very interesting because the TGCA poll doesn't really have a dog in the fight. There's nobody that's coaches stuff, and so frequently our poll reflects a slightly different reality than the coaches poll does. Candidly, we've been a lot more accurate when it comes to getting teams to the state, but it is interesting because it's the same communities. Don't bet against Shiner, don't bet against Weimer, don't bet against Schulenburg, don't bet against, there's a lot of parts of this state that don't bet against them because those schools, I do quickly go to softball. We had one district that sent 6 straight softball state champions in 1A, but it wasn't the same school. Flatonia, Weimar, Shiner, they were trading it off. Whoever won district, then won state. Played in the regional finals in one state. Volleyball, these 8 schools that are out here, they know the road. They know the path to Garland.
Yep. It's interesting about Natchez. Morgan Roberson, who's just an absolute doll of a coach, obviously left. Jenna Jenkins comes in. And I did the coaches survey and put out. It's just so funny to see this. I asked, years as head coach at the school, 1 for Jenna Jenkins. Years overall as head coach at current school, 1. Years overall as a head coach. This is my first year as head volleyball coach. And here she is with the 2-time defending state champions. And obviously, if there was a media line, they would be favored because, again, they've been here twice. They've got the same team pretty much. And I'll tell you what, I am really looking forward to seeing Casey Kimbrough play. She is a phenomenal player.
Chuck, I think that that there's within coaches, and I will say this as not being a coach, there is a coaching mystique that says don't screw it up. and how I mean that, and I think Morgan has done a spectacular job on that. Jennifer Kazmierski told me the hardest thing that she ever had is Lake Travis won state under Julie Green. Julie Green went on and won back-to-back state
Right.
championships at Capel. She can coach. Jennifer Kazmierski came in, had Amy Neal, Sierra Patrick, had this awesome team. She said the pressure on her not to screw it up. They went 50-0. 50-0. You're the first. Now, she was not a first-year head coach, but it was her
Right.
first year at Lake Travis. There's a lot of pressure to come in and to take over a team where the cupboard is full. And I will give you a real-time example. Following Lee Grisham at Wimberley, the cupboard was full, but they didn't win state. Sometimes following a legend is hard.
Yep.
Kazmierski told me that following Julie Green might have been the hardest thing in her life, and she went undefeated in one state.
Sometimes the best coaching you can do is to truly just be the bus driver.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just get the kids to the gym and let them shine and perform, and I think that's what Natchez has done. I mean, with that amount of experience, you know, be sure they got the uniform on and they get to the gym and put the lineup in the right way and go get it. You know,
Back when Jerry Tarkranian was successful at UNLV before he took over the Spurs and just cratered his career, they would ask him, how do you do this? How do you make it successful? He says, you know what? I roll the ball out and just let him play.
Go play, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of esteemed coaches and legends, I would not want to be the person that follows Jeff Coker at Crawford if he ever retires. I mean, this guy is he's amazing. And Butch, you and I have that tale. Two things. First and foremost, first thing I'm going to say to Jeff when I see him, last year at the press conference when they won, okay, they won it in 2017, then 2019. I said, so I guess I'll see you in 21? And he just kind of laughed. He's like, no, we're going to try to win it on an even year. You know, we're going to try to do that. The other thing is, and Butch, when Butch and I write this book, we're going to write a book. When we write this book, this is going to be in there. Last year, one of the media folks who obviously didn't understand it, and I'm not putting them down because, you know, sometimes you get assigned to a team and you're in a sport you don't know real well. Okay? They had that string of four losses in a row, right?
They played, and Crawford, when you look at their schedule, mixed in at the start is Plano West, Allen, Flower Mound. They're playing 6A monsters. They're playing
And they're 2A team.
Brutal terms. They're a 2A team. And so they had a streak early in the year that they lost 4 matches to those kinds of schools in one of those tournaments. And so the media member asked him if he was worried about his team coming back after the losing streak. And he was actually speechless. It's kind of like you have to slap your head. It's like, I'm sorry, do you not understand volleyball well enough to know that they would have had a good year to have beaten the JVs at those schools?
Right.
And I look at that each year. As I look at that, Lee did that at Wimberley. As I look at some of these schedules, as I mentioned, I will bring it back to Lee at Wimberley with his best team beat San Antonio. It was Clark. Right?
Clark.
Kirby's team was Clark.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Clark and Westlake played in the 5A state championship. Clark beat Westlake. But Lee's 3A team beat Clark and Westlake. I asked Kirby Irish about losing to Wimberley. Her comment was, well, they had 2 unenforced errors in the entire match. And Lee said, well, actually, we only had one. But, you know, but so what happens is that's what Crawford does. Crawford is a good example. They play such a fast pace that they're used to that. That's what's so hard. Now, I got to tell you, to be fair, I do think Crawford is a slight favorite. But, man, betting against Jason Culpepper in Bushland is a very risky because Bushland's schedule –
well, who did? What?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. They play
Crawford, come on.
Crawford.
This is 2A. This is 2A. Iola.
Iola.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
play Jamie McDougall's team.
Yeah.
Jamie has got there by beating Leon and beating Beckville. Really good competition.
Yeah.
So it's not an upset if Iola beats Crawford, but they're not the favorite. Yeah, the Bushland is going to be Jess Odom and Goliad, who is a wonderful team.
Right.
Plays Jason Culpepper, 2 of the best coaches in the state
Yep.
in 3A. And Bushland's got beat by Amarillo,
Yeah, Hereford. Yeah.
Hereford. It's
Yeah.
like, okay.
Well, but that caused this 2020 season was a little different. I mean, we're not used to seeing 2A and 3A, 4A teams be undefeated.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we weren't able to play the 5A and 6A.
That's right.
Right.
So
We didn't get the 3 weeks of
so
tournament run.
finding the tough matchups. I mean, to play great volleyball, you got to play great teams, and there's some of us that that schedule tough, and it pays off down in the playoff season, and that's where Jeff is. I just wonder if are we going to see the black shirt and the gold tie today? Yeah, absolutely. But that's going to be that match. Iola Crawford is it's a toss up.
It is so difficult. It really is to do state polls when you don't have tournament, you don't have the head-to-head, so you don't really know.
Yeah.
And I will just jump out of sport for a moment. Nazareth is my number one team, defending state champion in girls basketball. They haven't lost to another 1A team in 6 years.
That's a good pick there, Butch. That's a hard one.
However, I got three emails questioning why I had Nazareth number one after they got beat by 20 in their season opener.
Yeah.
And I said, but they lost to 5A Amarillo, who's the best, who's one of the two best 5A teams in the state by far. That's their idea of a schedule. We play Amarillo, we play.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm leaving them number one.
Well, I think at the 2A, 3A game today, those 4 teams kind of flew under the radar all year.
Agreed.
Especially the 3A teams. The Culpeper will tell you our best match this year was Hereford. Losing to Hereford helped us.
Yeah, yeah.
Because then Butch ranks us 5. And we don't have the target on our back,
exactly.
and all that stuff. And there's some truth to that. I was at that Ingram Goliad match, and Ingram being undefeated and great
all the
team.
Hullabaloo.
And I kept telling Coach Vela, said, "Man, get a warm up game and lose.
Yes.
Get done with that undefeated thing."
I think that is extremely smart because there was nothing wrong with Ingram Moore undefeated. They missed a couple of tournaments early. Yeah. They missed that opportunity to be really tested. And Goliad, by convert, played a tough schedule, got a couple losses, got their eye dotted early.
I mean, we had Ingram in our gym, and we had him on the ropes, couldn't finish the deal. They beat Wimberley 15-13 in the Ingram gym, and that they were deserving of that number one. But I think it helped. It helped Jess too at Goliad.
And I was gonna say, because I emailed with Jess, she was the first one that ever sent me her stats on a regular basis. So I always have fun conversations. And Butch has a little private joke with Jess, and we'll get to in a few minutes.
The Callisburg food poisoning joke.
That's right. Yeah. So I love chatting with a lot of coaches, and she's one of them. And I kept teasing her. I'm like, I'm on Butch about getting you up in the rankings. She's like, no, stop it. I don't want people to know what we're doing.
Yeah,
it's like, come on, Jess.
And her team is hungry. Those seniors were sophomores, I believe, when they won state last. Mm-hmm. And so they want to put their legacy. They want to put that banner up with their name on it. And they're solid. And I thought in that Ingram Goliad match, their playoff experience came through, and
I think it did.
When it got to set 5.
Coach Vela, I think that Ingram, I just don't think they had seen that. It's so hard.
Yeah. So now, conversely, you talk about somebody that's hungry for a state championship. Look at the other side.
Oh yeah,
and Jason Culpeper. I mean, he personally was just. He's been so frustrated because he's been so close the last couple of years with different teams. And he's got 1 out of 7.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what. There's not a more just intense coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty much there.
The beauty of 2020 is how we were able to sit at home and watch all these games.
Yes.
Right.
Streaming. Mm-hmm. And I watched their match, the regional final, and one of the commentators is a dad, one of his senior players, and he made the comment, the commentator, the dad, made the comment that they won and they're getting back to state semifinal, and that's was their goal, to get to state as everybody. But he said that Coach Culpeper in the locker room in the Colville Center last year said, off season starts now, we're going to work to get back. And it struck me that, the dad said, Culpeper said, get over it. Get over the loss. We're going to win. If you want to get over it, you win next year. And so they're on a mission. Mm-hmm. And they play fast, and they play a lot of good defense.
I think that's an interesting. We'll talk about the matches later, but the speed at which they play, if they can keep it up, they'll win. They play at a higher level speed, which is really.
This setter from Goliad though is she gives her hitters opportunities over and over and over, and That's going to be a fun match.
So the 4A, Wimberley, Decatur. Now,
Another great setter.
Butch and I always have this conversation, the golden triangle, we call it up there. Decatur, Crum, and Argyle.
And don't forget Bridgeport, Springtown.
Okay.
Good area.
Yeah.
Okay. Decatur won out, taking on the Wimberley team that we had a lot of fun with during the and we'll talk to Lee about Wimberley. Is it the best match we're going to see up here today, or is it the 3A match that might be the best?
No, I think
match?
the 3A match. I think Jason is so driven. Jess is such a great coach. Those teams have been to the mountain. They'll be prepared. Decatur has an amazing history athletically, not just in volleyball, but athletically. Wimberley has a history, but it's a long time back. You can make a case that Wimberley has almost. It's going to be hard for them to keep the focus up, having beaten Belleville and Needville. There's a natural tendency towards a little bit of relaxation. There'll have to be some Stephanie has to guard against. Paige Crawford, Holly Harwood, they have a nice setter in Jordan McFarland. Ryan Masur is a good libero. Wimberley's deserving of winning. Decatur's only loss is to Lovejoy. And Decatur has the advantage of having played a tough district schedule. Wimberley played probably a tougher playoff schedule. You beat a Susan Brewer team, you're something. You beat Needville, you're something. Blue Jays were a good team. This will be a good one, but for my money, watching that Jason Culpepper, watching Bushel and Goliad is going to be serious. And I have to fess up, 2 years ago, I picked Callisburg over Goliad. Not to my defense, I did not realize that Callisburg had the infamous pizza from hell and had the food poisoning and missed 3 starters, and Goliad won. But I did go on air and predict Callisburg. And Jess Odom,
and I gave you a lot of crap for that.
Never allowed me to forget that, and I have to take it where fair is due. Goliad's been back though. Callisburg hasn't.
Yeah. The 3A match is going to be great. The 4A match is going to be really good. Also,
is that kind of an unknown? I mean, again, Wimberley. Wimberley deserves to be there, but it's like look at the giants they've knocked off to get there.
Yeah, Region 4 4A was tough this year. That Needville team was really good. Their path to the playoffs. In our district, Bernie was really good.
Chinese Spring was really good.
Chinese Spring was good.
Yeah, and so Region 4 was tough, and both those teams have been tested. Wimberley has a side-out machine, though. Paige Crawford.
Yep.
Paige Crawford can, she's a junior going to Wake Forest, and whew.
How do you defend her? Because Butch and I were talking
you
about
duck and
the
cover.
Match.
You duck and cover. My poor setter at Fredericksburg got blasted a couple times, and our block wasn't big enough to stop her, and all it takes, she can turn an out of system ball and get a side out when they need it. And
Gateway had the 2 6-foot outsides to block, and Gateway's not a real great program, kind of emerging. I went up and watched that, and what I was impressed with is that Crawford went down line, went cross, tooled the block.
But their team is better this year because the middles have improved so much.
Yes.
Their middles are, and that's where we were when we played them. We got them to 23 in set 1 at our gym, and then you could kind of tell Paige Crawford said, "No, okay, let's go," and she got 2 kills, and then she had 15 kills in set 2 and 3, and she's a difference maker.
Yes.
But she has pieces to go with her. You can't stop her because the middles. I thought the middles played really well against Needville and Belleville.
She's the best outside Wimberley has had since.
Those are big words. Those are big words.
He said since. Hang on.
No.
Let him finish.
Since. Caitlin Rainbird, Courtney McCrocklin.
Yes.
And
yeah.
McCrocklin was possibly, I don't know, Lee, I always have to defer to you. It was hard to tell, depending on which day you showed up. Because Jesse fed both of them, and they both were kill machines.
Then there was Katie Milam in between there.
Really good, but McCrocklin and Rainbird were special.
Now, Catherine Forster is the head coach. Clark Oberle was there when they I forget the name of libero. They had one of the best liberos in the state back when they won it.
Yeah, and that Decatur team is so balanced. I watched the Lovejoy match, and that was Culpepper watched that match also, and he texted me and he said that may have been the best high school volleyball match I've ever seen.
Yeah, they're tough.
The skill level.
Yeah.
The liberos on both sides of that Lovejoy. And we'll talk about Lovejoy in a couple of weeks probably. But setters, liberos, middles, outside. Every team, both teams in that match had great pieces, and that's where Decatur's the same way. It's balance. When you get to 4A, 5A, 6A volleyball, it's about balance.
Yeah, well, and I think that Decatur, particularly, that district that they're in is so good.
Yes.
With all schools, with Argyle and Chrome, you got to be sure because everybody wants to beat you. You got to show, and they have the talent to beat you. So they got to show up.
How many sets have they lost? Three. Three all year, and they're balanced. And when a middle has a bad night, the outside can carry them, and the setter is phenomenal.
Well, Wimberley has to beat Decatur. Decatur's not going to beat themselves.
Yep.
Okay, so it's that time. Prediction for Championship Saturday. Okay.
Where you want to start?
I want to start with the 1A, Natchez and Blum. I'll go first. Easily. Two-time defending champ is going to make it 3 in a row. First-year head coach, and I think it's like we talked about. She just rolls the ball out, lets them do what they do, and they win.
Yeah, don't discredit the coaching though. Don't just say roll the ball out. That as a coach, that makes me cringe. That makes me cringe a little bit. There's a lot more to it, but two-time defending state champ. The building, you have to win the building. When you get here on Saturday, you have to win the building. You have to get over those nerves, and today's going to be different in all the games because they haven't played a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday semifinal. So I think defending state champ has got it.
I think Jason is completely right because if there was a semifinal, I actually think Blum has got more talent than Natchez. But not having been in the building, I see Natchez. This is the first match for Blum. They're good, really good.
Yeah.
Lack of experience in the building is going to be the difference.
By the way, got a couple of texts while we were doing the show saying, "Hey, thank you for the social distancing."
And the mood lighting, the lighting in the room is really good.
You get what you got. 1 o'clock today, 2A state championship, Crawford and Iola.
Pick them. You can't. That could be a 5-setter in that building, which is always fun.
So much. Jeff and Jamie, great coaches, Hall of Fame coaches, Hall of Fame programs. I'm with the pick 'em up. I'm going to give Crawford a slight edge. Crawford's one of their losses was to China Spring, who was undefeated until Belleville beat them in the 4A regional final. So I'm going to give Jeff a slightest edge over Jamie, but I think it's a 5-setter too. Yeah,
Crawford will play faster, which is a big thing in our game. But that Iola's going to set it high in the middle and turn it to a corner, and you got to defend it. And I'm a pick 'em. I think Butch is probably right. Maybe Crawford because they've played a little bit tougher schedule, but that building is tough.
Only because we have to make a prediction.
Crawford,
but I totally agree with you. This is going to be a fun match to watch.
Yeah.
And we're going to be thrilled that we were here to see it, for sure. Okay, 3A. This is the monster, Bushland and Goliad.
Both of those coaches are friends of mine, and I don't want to pick against either one of them because they both have a mean streak in them that, like the you bring up the Callisburg, Jess won't forget that.
No.
I know they're both practicing right now, so they're probably not watching. I think,
of course, this will be available for replay, so they'll be able
to
go back and watch it.
And I'm a Region 4 guy, and I want the Region 4 team to win, but Bushland's pretty motivated. They've looked really good in the playoffs. And
Jason, I'm with you on that, and I love Jess, and she always kicks my keister anyway. But I think Bushland's been gearing for this for a year.
Yep.
I don't know many coaches any more focused than Jason Culpepper.
Right.
And so I look for this to be the match, but I give a slight edge to Bushland.
When I watched Goliad when they beat Ingram. Us coaches talk all the time. It's a serving and passing game. That's a war between serving and passing, and Goliad served really aggressive in set 4 and 5. And if they're able to do that, they'll get some easy balls back from Bushland, and they'll hang in. It's serving in that building is hard.
Yeah, it's a system game though. If Goliad can't get Bushland out of system, they'll lose.
Right.
To Jason's point, if you can serve them out of system and keep them off, get some free balls, you can win.
Yeah.
But if Bushland is able to stay in system, they're too tough in system.
Yeah, and I really felt like in that Ingram game, Goliad had won the game from the service line, and we'll see. We'll see. This building, I haven't been blessed to coach in it, but coaches that have talk about the wall on the end, and that's a COVID thing also now is
Don't switch,
is we're not switching. So, and I haven't heard how they distinguish home and visitor and who gets to pick, and that became a thing in playoffs is, a lot of coaches, home visitor volleyball doesn't mean anything, but in 2020 it meant something. Do you want to serve first, and then the home team gets to pick the side, and in some gyms it's advantageous. I know Coach Grisham always talked about that big wall at Strahan Coliseum. You wanted to set one, you wanted to serve at it, right? And this gym is kind of similar. It's a horseshoe and it's a wall, and you're not switching sides. But the service line is going to be big, and then defense. And I think, but Bushland can serve it too. I hate to be the pick'em guy, but the motivation that Bushland has to redeem the loss from last year may get them over the hump.
I'd like to think I'm.
But Jess, I love your team, Jess. If you watch this later, I'm with you. I'm kind of rooting for both of them in that game.
I'd like to think that, and Butch has a lot more better connections than I do with the coaches. But these are two of my favorite coaches to talk to, and obviously different personalities. I'm gonna go with Jess only because it's 2020. When Kingwood Park beat Lovejoy a couple years ago in state, I mean, there's always going to be that one, and to me, this is. And it's not an upset, really, if Goliad wins today.
No.
But I think when you tilt it, it's going to tilt on the Bushland side. And of course, I got to pick Jess a little bit, too, because of, the Butch Hart factor. But I think, they come through today. Should be fun. And then finally, do we have to ask Lee to leave before we pick this one, Decatur and Wimberley? By the way, Lee, and we didn't get a chance to, and I'm sure he won't now, he gave, was it a dinner? Yeah. Okay, it was a dinner, and he gave, he was going to get up there and talk for like 10 minutes. He really didn't want to do it.
A smart move for Stephanie to ask him to come talk to the team.
Exactly.
That's
he ended up
stuff.
talking for 30 minutes, and I still say that is part of what propelled them to get here today. So Decatur and Wimberley, thoughts?
As much as I love Decatur, and I think fundamentally they may be the best of the 8 teams out here, I think with Lee Grisham riding saddle, this might be Wimberley's time. Is I love Holly Harwood, Paige Crawford, Major, McFarland, the middles. Stephanie's done a great job. Wimberley has, I've seen Wimberley several times. I've seen Decatur streaming 3 times. Decatur is frighteningly good. And I mentioned system. Decatur's a better system team than Wimberley. For Wimberley to win, Paige Crawford's got to have a huge match, and they've got to do a lot of special things. If everybody plays to their A game, Decatur wins. If Wimberley's able to get Decatur out of their system, they can win. But if you don't get Decatur out of their system, they win. They're too strong. Fundamentally, they're too strong. You got to get them out of there. However, Paige Crawford has that special ability. I've seen her hit line. I've seen her hit middle. I've seen her triple blocks. I've seen her tip the ball. She's a difference maker, and you're going to need a difference maker to beat Decatur.
Coach?
What he said. And I
pretty much sums it up, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Wimberley just because they're in my district, and I don't want to motivate those kids for 2021 to beat us any worse than what they could. But Butch is right. It's across the board. Decatur should win this game, but that's why we play the game.
Right.
And as I talk about the building and the moment and all that good stuff, I mean, we can go back to the teams that should win when they get here. Leander Rouse a couple years ago.
We watched Prosper beat Rouse.
Yep.
And
it has that same feel. This kind of has that same feel. Wimberley was that team not getting a lot of attention. They lost some early games, and
that's my reminder forever. Is that I've had 2 A good friend of Lee's and mine that's no longer with us, Jason Landers at a Bowie team many years ago, and the Rouse team with McCall, Elon McCall. Sometimes those things happen.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why you play the game.
Yep.
And it's such a momentum game.
Absolutely.
As we started the day talking about momentum, and it could come down to the way the round ball bounces, as I say.
It may be the first time in multiple years that all three of us agree on the same thing. But I mean, and Butch knows I've been riding the Wimberley bandwagon since day one, so I'm going to pick them to win, and it's going to be a great match. For Wimberley to win, it's got to be a great match.
Yes.
If it's a three-setter for some God-known reason, Decatur wins. But Wimberley.
Well, and I think that can be said for all the matches.
you're right.
Is when you get to set 3, you get to set 3 in these 3 out of 5 matches. Who won the first set? Who has the momentum? And Wimberley needs to win set 1, I think, to kind of, hey, we can play with this team, a confidence thing. And the same can be said for that Bushland Goliad match. The team that wins set 1 will have an advantage.
Since we have gone to the best 3 out of 5 at the state tournament, I did a math a couple days ago, is the team that won the 3rd set has won 83% of the state championships.
Wow.
Now, sometimes that's because the 3rd set is you've won 3 straight, so the number can be a little skewed. But it's interesting because, to your point, Jason, is that 3rd set is pivotal. Like I say, sometimes you've won the first 2 and you win the 3rd out. Yeah. But a lot of times when it's gone 1-1, that 3rd set is the difference maker.
The window starts to close.
Yeah.
The match is getting shorter, and now you just need 25
Man, I
more.
love this sport.
Yeah. No.
There you go.
The game of volleyball in the state of Texas is in a really good spot.
Amen.
And as Lee kind of mentioned, UIL and will we get to the state championship Saturday in basketball? That's kind of up in the air. There's a lot of people saying we won't, but for these teams, and Lee told me he kind of applauded when he gave his speech to Wimberley, was you accomplished something just getting to the regional final.
Absolutely.
Or the state semifinal. You stayed healthy, did what you needed to do. Your coaches provided a clean and safe environment for you to compete in, and we're here.
Yeah. Jason, for you and Lee, I want to throw something out for you and Lee and Sam. Is in Texas, Chuck and I are both involved in, you guys probably know I do the USA Today and part of those boards. Texas is the only state in which high school volleyball is actually bigger than club volleyball. Now, how I mean that is, I don't mean that club is small in Texas by any stretch of the imagination. However, across the state, there are hundreds and hundreds of really good schools that play volleyball whose kids don't have an opportunity to play anything more than maybe a little rec ball in their community because it's so far. That doesn't apply nationally. Clubs are they have to make rules around clubs, doing all the recruiting, doing all those things. The high school kids, they recruit the clubs and they play these things. In Texas, high school coaches are the backbone of volleyball in the state. And the reason there are decent clubs is because of high school coaches, not vice versa.
Right.
And like I say, I don't have a dog in that fight. I love club volleyball. I love volleyball. But Texas is unique. And I want to thank you guys for that because that's what makes it unique.
Well, it goes back to the his name, Arthur Stanfield at Red Oak. Those guys, Al Bennett, those guys that turned club volleyball into what it is, the Glenn Litskys
That's correct.
in Austin, and now Mike Carter in San Antonio with Alamo. I mean, you go through the top clubs, you have high school coaches involved, but it grew. The high school coaches as I say it, in Texas, used club volleyball to make their high school programs better.
Where you have it is you have the Lee Grishams, the Al Bennett's, the Mike Carters, the Jan Barkers. I wish that soccer had the alignment that volleyball has.
Well, and basketball too.
Yeah,
that's the missing piece is that, as I say, the high school coaches in the state of Texas, you go to Jan Barker, Jason Nicholson, Ryan Mitchell up here in Dallas. I mean, they use club volleyball to make their high school teams better. And the missing piece from club is the community piece that we've been talking about.
That's why community is so important. That's why volleyball is so important.
Well,
It's so special.
You play for a club national championship, and you're going to play in front of the 20 parents that are there.
That's right.
And you know, this 4A game today is sold out. It's a COVID sellout.
Right. Yeah.
but the towns are coming,
Yeah.
and you can't replace that.
When you were a very young man, Jason, you're still a young man. At Burger Center, when I used to cover it at Burger Center, you couldn't find a place to sit your fanny in the stands at Burger Center. It was jammed. It's 1,200, and I know that the fire marshal said we had 1,800 in Burger Center multiple times.
Right.
You know, the year that Hutto and Westwood both won state, they both have shades of orange as their colors. It was amazing.
But I want to piggyback what you said about when you compare other states.
Yes.
And what we've done this year in 2020, there's a lot of states that have had to cancel, but winning a region in Texas is pretty much the equivalent of winning a state.
Yes.
in other states. It's so difficult, and 2020 has been difficult, like we talked about on top of everything else. Just winning a game is a hurdle in of itself, and kudos to those 8 teams and 8 coaches and 8 communities that are here.
Yes, indeed.
And it's going to be a great day.
It is going to be a great day. So check us out online. We'll have interviews after each match. Check out Twitter. Check out social media. And the great thing is, the bizarre, but the great thing is, because it's 2020, we'll have this conversation and continue this conversation in about 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks. It'll be fun. Guys, thanks for the time. Obviously, Lee Grisham, who's off camera, thank you very much as well. Thanks to Daryl back at the studios for making sure we were on, looking and sounding as good as we can. And for all of you, be safe. Enjoy today if you can get here. If not, check it out.